I had no idea the creators of Severance wrote a short story to go along with the show that offers clues into what's actually going on. It's a 43-page ebook called The Lexington Letter that's free to download on Apple Books. It's about a severed employee named Peg Kincaid, or Peggy, who is writing to Daria Thorne of the Topeka Star, trying to expose Lumen. Meanwhile, Daria is having an email conversation with her editor Jim about whether or not she can pursue this crazy story. We find out that Peggy was working on something called the Lexington File on the severed floor, and she completed it at 2:30 p.m. And then later that day, when Peggy goes home and watches the news, she finds out that exactly 2 minutes after she finished that file, a competitor of Lumen called Dorner had a truck that exploded. This resulted in 6 people dying and Dorner losing some of his prototypes, so Peggy thinks that Lumen might be involved in some type of corporate espionage. And this is where it gets crazy. After trying to expose Lumen, Peggy dies in a car accident, which is the same way that Gemma dies. And we find out that the editor who was pushing Daria not to write this story, saying that it was a pretty loose story, his last name is Milchek. So this confirms that there are more Milcheks out there. And then the end of this short story has the handbook attached, which confirms the 4 tempers theory. The emotions that the numbers bring out in the refiners are woe, frolic, dread, and malice. And as you can see here, each bucket is a combination of those 4 tempers. So what the heck does this all mean? The Severance actors debunked the clone theory in an Entertainment Weekly interview, so I'm gonna pivot. I think the key to all of this goes back to car accidents. Peggy got into a car accident in the Lexington Letter. As we all know, Gemma also got into a car accident. And then this Reddit user, Old Reputation 8987, had a crazy catch in the season finale of Severance. Irv has a box with a list of all severed people. And this only pops up for a split second, but if you zoom in on this list, there's a guy named Doug Coleman. And guess what? Doug Coleman also in a car crash. And then Irv writes, did the settlement lead to severance? Another Reddit user, MetalMechX, also points out that Mrs. Huang could be involved in a car accident. We know from episode 1 that Mrs. Huang was a crossing guard, so maybe she got hit by a car and ended up in a coma. So Peggy caused a car accident by completing the Lexington File. Peggy died in a car accident, Gemma died in a car accident, Doug Coleman got into a car accident, and Miss Huang might have been in a car accident. So I think Lumen is either causing these car accidents so they can get test subjects, or they're recruiting people after the fact once they've been in these accidents. And then the refiners are basically reprogramming people's consciousness by sorting the 4 tempers into buckets. Basically, they're coding microchips to have people's unique personalities or temperaments. And I think they're testing this on people that are in a coma or dead because they want to make sure that when the Lumen CEO is approaching his death, they can basically program a chip that will make him immortal. And that explains why the Lumen CEO talked about his revolving in the season finale. Maybe he has a chip that's going to be reprogrammed or planted in someone else so that he can continue to live on with his consciousness. So this is absolutely crazy stuff, and I think some of it may be a stretch, but I also think some of it might be true. Let me know what you think in the comments.